Hello again. This is James, and for this video I wanted to build on one of the two that I posted the same day last time. The one I wanted to build on was I had done the top 10 movies you'd likely never heard of. Top 10 favorite of mine that you'd likely never heard of. And I came up with this idea based on one of these movies that I'd seen quite recently, and the rest had been over the years. And so this was the top 10 zombie movies you've likely never heard of. And I thought this was pretty interesting because I watch a lot of movies, and a lot of them tend to be horror movies, vampire films, zombie movies, all across the spectrum, all the genres and stuff. And there's always indie ones or lesser known ones with big stars in them that just fall by the wayside. Direct to video. And if you're not following those, then they just slip through the cracks. You never hear about them. And, well, at least one of them I heard about because of a podcast. So, it was one that I'd never heard of. And, no, I had heard of it. Okay, but we'll get to that. So, starting with number 10, we have a zombie comedy called Cockneys versus Zombies. Oh, by the way, I apologize for the last two videos. I swore I thought I had included the photos that pop up of the movies, and it just didn't upload on either of them. I was really disappointed, so I'm going to try my best. If it doesn't happen, I apologize in advance, but I'm going to do my best to make sure they upload like the other ones previously did. So yeah, number 10, Cockneys versus Zombies. This one's a zombie comedy. It's pretty funny. It has some recognizable faces in it. The two most likely would be Harry Treadaway, who I most recognized him from a show I recently finished watching twice, and I'm going on a third time. The original Penny Dreadful. And he played Dr. Victor Frankenstein in that. And the other one, I can't remember his name, older gentleman. He played Bricktop in Snatch. And he was in Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels as well. I can't remember the character's name. This is basically a bunch of bank robbers rob a bank, and at the same time, these construction workers on this site accidentally unearth a graveyard, and one of the bodies gets up and bites the guy and kicks off their own little mini zombie apocalypse in the UK. And the bank robbers are running away and trying to take refuge in a retirement home. So they're banding together, working with a bunch of senior citizens, and hijinks ensue. But there's a really funny part that you can see in the trailer of this old guy just trying to get away from the zombies on his walker, and these aren't fast moving zombies, so the zombies are lumbering after him, and he's just keeping ahead of him on his walker. It's cute. It's pretty funny. Number 9. This one has two different titles. The title on my DVD is called Aaah, Zombies. The other title is called Wasting Away. And I just found this one in the store, and I thought the cover looked interesting, and the concept sounded interesting as well. And it's basically these three friends working at not a fast food restaurant, it's like an ice cream shop. And it's been a while since I watched it, but I think somehow they come in contact with these barrels of this neon glowing green liquid, and they accidentally get into the ice cream maker, and they each have some ice cream. You see this glowing green ice cream coming out, and they eat them, and then something weird happens. They're not seeing a lot of people around, and everything that's happening around them seems to be moving really fast. People going by them really fast and stuff. And they're trying to make their way across town. Several things occur, but it's basically they're turning into zombies or have turned into zombies and don't know it, and the rest of the world is just moving at regular speed. They're moving super slow. They're just not aware of it, and it's really it flips it right on it. Flips the zombie movie right on its head. And it's let me see, the main out of the main actors, the only one I really recognize or remember his name is Matt Davis, Alaric Saltzman from the Vampire Diaries and various other things, but that's mainly what he's known for, to me at least. Yeah, so zombies or wasting away, however you find it. If you type in on IMDb wasting away, the picture comes up and you see the cover of the movie. It says zombies, so it's known by either title. Okay, number 8, sorry. Number 8, we have another indie one called Deadgirl. And this one, two people I recognize, well, a few people. The two main guys are played by Shiloh Fernandez and Noah Segan. Shiloh Fernandez, I believe, was in Red Riding Hood. He's in various movies. I always get him mixed up with another actor. Noah Segan is a staple of, I'm pretty sure he appears at some point in every Rian Johnson film. He had a minor role, semi-minor role, supporting role in Brick. And he showed up in Brothers Bloom. He's there for a quick second in The Last Jedi. You see him going by, he's one of the rebel soldiers going by on a transport. He's in Knives Out. Looper. He's another supporting guy in Looper. But they basically, they go exploring. Noah Segan finds this abandoned building, hospital, I think, and in the basement they find this operating table covered in a clear tarp, and there's this naked girl underneath, strapped down, who's still alive, and sort of like an undead zombie, and he starts kind of pimping her out, like guys then come in and do whatever they want to her because she can't move and she can't die, and it's a pretty twisted movie, especially when a few people accidentally get bit by her and then they start to die. I don't think they turn into zombies, but it's not a movie for the faint of heart. But it's another interesting concept because what was this place? What happened to her, and why was she left there, and how is she still alive? So that could be a whole other movie, but they never actually did a follow-up to it. Number 7, good Canadian zombie movie, different kind of zombie movie, done by Bruce McDonald, Canadian director, and this one has, a largely Canadian cast, Stephen McHattie and Lisa Houle. I didn't really recognize her from anything, but Georgina O'Reilly still shows up in it. She has a supporting role, and she was in another Bruce McDonald film, the concert movie with a fictitious narrative wrapped around it, an actual concert, Broken Social Scene concert that happened in Toronto a few years back, and the movie was This Movie Is Broken. It was almost going to be on the top 10 films you've likely never heard of. It just barely missed the cut. But this one's basically all takes place inside a radio station, and Stephen McHattie and Lisa Houle are the two. He's the DJ. She's co-host / producer, I believe. And it's sort of this zombie apocalypse that's going on outside the studio. And the twist is the zombie virus is being spread by language. People start talking, and the language, they start repeating themselves, and they turn into murderous zombies, and they spread it to each other by the things that they're saying. It's very weird. So they're trying to fend off the zombies by staying in the DJ booth of the radio station, but they also find themselves starting to become affected by the language zombie virus, and they realize that they can counteract it by replacing one word with another. Like, I think they use the example, kill is kiss, and they repeat it several times. It's like, kill is kiss, and we're going to use this word for this word, in a way to not spread it between each other or spread it anywhere else. Really, really interesting, and especially for one that takes place in a single location. And it's basically Stephen McHattie, Lisa Houle, Georgina O'Reilly, and I think there's a few guests that come in, but a lot of it is heard over the radio, like a War of the Worlds kind of thing, where you're just hearing all these events that are going on in the outside world. Really good indie horror film. Number 6, we have a film from Norway, done by Tommy Wirkola. He's the guy who did this is called Dead Snow. And he did the sequel, Dead Snow 2, Red vs. Dead, more of a comedic film. This one's more of a serious film. He also did What Happened to Monday, also known as Seven Sisters, and he did Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters. Very fun movie. Dead Snow is a bunch of friends camp up in the snow, and they meet this guy at the cabin that they're renting, and he basically informs them that this location was once used by the Nazis in World War II for like torture and experiments and stuff, and they find some gold and treasures believed to have been possessed by the previously owned by the Nazis, and all these Nazi zombies start coming up out of the ground and terrorizing them. And it was a really fun trailer to watch, because like 3/4 of the way through the trailer, it's like Eins, Wein, die. It's like 1, 2, die or something. But you hear Ode to Joy. It's like dun 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 dun, as all this horde of Nazi zombies are running across the snow after them. Beautiful piece of music to put to that part of the trailer. I don't think I didn't recognize any of the actors really in it, because which happens with some foreign films, but it was an indie horror film. Yeah, the sequel's pretty funny. You get some more recognizable actors in there. What was his name? He's in a lot of Seth Rogen and Judd Apatow films. He was in Undecided and Freaks and Geeks, the TV show. Can't remember his name. He's like long brown hair and glasses. He's like one of the teachers in Spider-Man: Homecoming and Far From Home that takes him on the field trips. If you've seen those movies, you know what I'm talking about. The guy with the glasses. Name just escapes me. Putting myself on the spot. Number 5, we have a movie I just saw last week, I think, and it came out maybe a month ago. It was supposed to come out, I don't know in how many theaters it would have come out, but it was supposed to come out, and then the whole quarantine stuff happened, COVID. So it went to a couple of streaming services. The one I can't remember, the other one, Crave. The one you can watch for Letterkenny is on. The show I highly recommend. But this movie appeared on there because there was no theaters for it to come into. It's a zombie movie called Blood Quantum. Blood Quantum was the thing they tried. It takes place on an Indian reservation, and the Blood Quantum was how the government tried to determine how much of a First Nation. How much of a First Nation your blood was, and like they could disqualify you or you wouldn't get First Nation rights, I believe. And it was trying to like disperse the First Nation people and stuff. So they took that name and for this movie, and it's made by a First Nation director. Aboriginal native cast. I believe it's a Canadian film. I hadn't heard of the director's previous film, but I would check it out if I can find it. And the one guy I recognized in this was Michael Grey Eyes, and he was in, I believe, the 3rd season of Fear the Walking Dead, because it involves a farm and a neighboring Indian reservation. He was also Gooch in Dance Me Outside, another Bruce McDonald film. Fantastic movie, which had the film debut of Hugh Dillon, lead singer of the Headstones. Yeah. But yeah, it takes place in early 80s, and I think a zombie or two show up. Something happens. The guy gets sick. These kids get arrested, and they're in the drunk tank, and one of them is sick, and they think maybe the alcohol they were drinking or whatever infected him. Anyway, he breaks out, kills some people, it starts to spread, and then it jumps ahead, I think, a few months, and they've built this wall around their Indian reservation, and they're only letting certain people in. Basically trying to, it's sort of like Walking Dead, they're trying to keep their community free of the infected zombies. And it's a really violent movie, but very, very well done. Very well done. And one of the guys is really good with the samurai sword. I mean, that's awesome. You can see the cover if you look it up, or if it works and it uploads here. Guy's wearing like a goalie mask and has a big long, I don't know if it's a hockey stick or a spear, but he's got like a blade on the end of it. Awesome. So that's Blood Quantum. Number 4. This is the one I heard about on from James on the Cinerealist podcast, and this was a indie horror zombie movie. Well, more of an indie zombie movie. I wouldn't call it very much a horror movie just because there's zombies involved. And it's called The Battery. And I remember Cineplex was doing, like when they had Most Wanted Mondays, and they also had this indie horror film series that would play at some of the bigger theaters. Like they did Cabin Fever, Patient Zero. They did another one, a foreign film that took place up in the Arctic with ice melting and blood coming out and monsters, I think. And one of the ones they did, because I remember putting up the miniature posters you see in the bathrooms, and it was of The Battery. And it's basically these two, done by starring and directed by Jeremy Gardner. And it's basically two former baseball players are traveling across the country because the zombie apocalypse has happened, and they're just trying to survive, going from town to town and whatever. And they end up, I think they find a radio, and they get in touch with someone, and they sort of lead them astray, ambush them, and throw them in the path of these zombies, and they end up getting stuck in their car with all these zombies all around them. It's got a great song in there, a dance, sort of like, it's not a dance sequence. The guy starts listening to a song on his CD player and starts dancing around the house, and they filmed it, and it was pretty funny. But very well, it's basically down to two guys. You see the people, the voice that they were talking to on the radio briefly, but it's largely the two guys, and they do a great job. Very well done for a very small budget. The Battery. Not entirely sure why it's called The Battery. I'd have to watch it again. Number 3 is one from, I think, just a couple years ago. It's called The Girl with All the Gifts. And I remember reading about this and making a note of it. Like, this sounds very interesting. I have to check it out. And it's got Patty Considine from like Edgar Wright movies, Glenn Close, and Gemma Arterton. And I think it's over in the UK, and it's basically a zombie apocalypse has happened, but it's this disease spread by these fungus spores, sort of like what happens in The Last of Us. And the longer these zombies are infected, like this fungus starts growing out of their head and stuff. There's these big seed casings that if they erupt or burst, it'll spread these spores all over. There ends up being this huge tower that has all these spores on it. And if it goes up, it could likely infect the entire country, continent, the world, whatever. But it's basically takes place partially on this military base where they've got all these kids who were born from pregnant women who were infected with this zombie virus. And this is the bit the gross part. You don't see it, but they describe it, where they basically ate their way out of the mother's bellies, but they haven't, and they do crave blood if it's presented to them, but they haven't turned into zombies. So they have them in this classrooms, and they're teaching them. The one lady's teaching them, Gemma Arterton, but they have like a Hannibal Lecter kind of plastic masks over their face so they can't attack anyone, and they try not to tempt them with blood or anything. And things end up going south, and they have to abandon the military base and travel. They have to get away. I think they're trying to get somewhere, but they have to bring this girl along with them because she can kind of navigate them through the zombies, and Glenn Close is the main military doctor trying to get the cure out of the girl. And it's another interesting take on the zombie genre. The Girl with All the Gifts. Number two is called Cell, and it's based on the Stephen King novel, and it never got a theatrical release. It languished for a couple years, and it went straight to VOD and DVD and Blu-ray and stuff like that. And it stars Samuel L. Jackson and John Cusack, who were both in another fantastic Stephen King adaptation, 1408. They're back together in this. And I read a bit of the book. I still have it. I'm going to go back to it, like all my books. But the movie basically kicks off, and this is sort of like Pontypool, where this mysterious signal gets sent out over all the cell phone waves. And the movie basically opens up at an airport, and people start talking on their phones, and you hear this weird signal, sort of like the indie movie The Signal from several years before. They have a similar pretext concept, but they're not connected. One didn't rip off the other. But everything just goes batshit insane. And like people start running around, bashing themselves in the head, running into walls and attacking people. And John Cusack's in the airport, and he gets out, meets up in the tunnel with Samuel L. Jackson and a few other people, and the world's gone to shit, and they're trying to navigate their way through it. Yeah, it's an intense movie. Deserves some love, I think. Cell. Not The Cell. Not to be confused with The Cell, the Jennifer Lopez, Vince Vaughn, mind trip, serial killer movie done by Tarzan. It's a different movie. No "the" on it. Number one, we have a zombie film called Maggie. This is one of those ones, another one that I mentioned that goes to direct-to-video with big stars. This one stars Arnold Schwarzenegger in an awesome non-action dramatic role from him. Does an amazing job. And the girl, I thought for half a second, I always get them mixed up, Chloe Grace Moretz and Abigail Breslin. This one stars Abigail Breslin. And she plays the daughter to Arnold Schwarzenegger. And she's I think she's out visiting someone, or she's in another town, and she gets bit. And there's a zombie, it's not so much a zombie apocalypse going on, but there's an outbreak of this zombie virus that you get bit or scratched, you'll slowly turn into a zombie. And they have, I suppose they have camps, they also have treatments for them to try and not necessarily cure them, but kind of ease their pain and put them out of their misery, or in a non-violent way. And he doesn't want to do that. He's given the option. He doesn't want to do that. He wants to protect his daughter. He wants to keep his daughter at home, and she's slowly turning into a zombie. And it has an awesome, I remember posting this on Facebook, the shot just a shot, and it's even in the trailer, of like Arnold looking down. He's got like a tear running down his face. Oh, it kills me. Excellent, excellent movie. I don't want to say I'd say one of the few just straight up dramatic roles he's done, but in my opinion, by far the best. And that's why it's my number one. And it went direct to video. I knew about it, but I don't know how many people other would. I would talk about it with my friend Dalton, and I'm sure I mentioned it to some other people, but yeah, it's one to look out for. And Arnold's face is right on the covers. You see his face, Maggie. This is the one I'm talking about. So yeah, that's my 10 top 10 zombie films you've likely never heard of. And if you hadn't, you do now. So I recommend check them out. Okay, I'm not sure what my next one is going to be. I was going to do a top 10 Canadian films. I may still. That's a tough topic, just because the Canadian productions, co-productions, or stick to just straight up made in Canada with Canadian actors largely, Canadian locations, Canadian directors, writers, and stuff like that. That's what I'm going to try and do. All right, so cool. Thanks for watching once again, and toodles.